IEPs Part 3. So just the regular session norms, if you could rename yourself to your full name, and please throughout the presentation remain on mute. And if you have any questions, just use Zoom chat and we will provide responses. And you know, maybe when we ask a question, if you just put your question or your response into the chat. This event will be recorded and shared via the CTE calendar. All questions will be considered, and if answers cannot be provided on the spot, we will definitely get back to you as soon as we can.
And at the end of the session, we hope to have a more live interactive discussion.
Absolutely.
So all of that is just during the presentation.
Correct, right.
Okay, next, thank you. So we'll go back and forth. How about that, Laurie?
How about that? Okay.
So this is a collaboration between the Division of Multilingual Learners and the Division of Specialized Instruction and Student Support, known as DSISS, and the Division of Teaching and Learning and the Academic Integration Office project of the CTE, of Career Technical Ed. So what we're trying to do here, the Institute sessions we've been running an Institute. This is the 3rd session of a 3-session Institute. Today is to understand special populations, data and outcomes, explore the cognitive mindsets and language that inform teaching and learning, review interdisciplinary and differentiated instructional strategies and interventions, and apply the skills, learning and resources in real time. So our plan today is to jump right into taking some sample units and the lessons that are designed to teach them, and then giving you all of us a chance to noodle on them. What would you do to differentiate for the kids whose profiles are here? So we've got a whole package of great tools to do that. And Laurie is going to model it for us in the beginning in a fishbowl with me. And then we're going to give you a chance in a breakout session to actually do it yourself. So next slide, please, Rebecca. So Rebecca, Laurie, you want to talk about
Sure.
what we've done so far?
So in session 2, we went deeper into IEP implementation and the differentiation strategies that you can use in your lesson and that students can use. We became familiar with backward design template for developing differentiated units and lessons, and we're going to look at a few of those units today. And we learned about the attributes of academic integration as a driver of equity and differentiated instruction for all of our students with IEPs. And then we went into breakouts on how to differentiate instructions and scaffolds for a targeted performance indicator. So that was our session 2. And next slide, please. So today we're going to, as Jaimie said, we're going to observe a fishbowl coaching session centered around incorporating academic integration, UBD, and differentiated strategies into a mini unit. And then we're going to reflect on where one is on the continuum of understanding academic integration and UBD and supporting our students with IEPs, incorporating differentiated strategies.
And since we're always using acronyms and we're merging different fields and departments, UBD is understanding by design or backwards design. Right. And I think everybody knows what an IEP is at this point.
Yeah, individual education program. So today we have, I'm Laurie Holden, and I work with the instructional, I'm an instructional lead at the Division of Specialized Instruction and Student Support at our TCAC centers. We have Sharon Prince-Yearwood, who is the Senior Director, CTE School Engagement, and then Jaimie Cloud, who you've met. She's the president of the Cloud Institute for Sustainability and Education, and Dr. Dante Tawfeeq, who's the Associate Professor of Mathematics, John Jay College of Criminal Justice.
And Dante has strep throat, so you won't be hearing much from him
right.
today.
He may post in the chat though.
And then we hear his work.
Right. And then Dontrell Cotton and Samantha Joseph, who will be Dontrell's not here today, but
Right.
Rebecca Cushman is here, also from the Division of Specialized Instruction and Student Support, and they will be monitoring the chat. Okay, and so let's just start with, we were talking a lot about accommodations and modifications in our previous two sessions. So let's talk about the difference between accommodations and modifications. So when a student has an IEP, they likely will have accommodations. So you may also hear school staff mention modification. They sound similar and are often interchanged, but they do have very different meanings. So an accommodation changes how a student learns the material, and a modification changes what a student is taught or expected to learn. So accommodations are tools and procedures that give students with disabilities equal access to instruction and assessment. So they're designed just to level the playing field for students with disabilities with their general education peers. The modifications will change the content or the instructional level of the curriculum. So while accommodations are changes in formats of procedures, modifications change the difficulty level and or the quantity of the content being taught. So modifications are made for students with disabilities who are unable to comprehend all of the content that an instructor is teaching. So an example would be assignments might be reduced in number or modified significantly to include only key points. So who gets these accommodations and who gets modifications? So students with disabilities who have IEPs or 504 plans may receive testing accommodations on all assessments, including New York State and New York City assessments, and even classroom assessments. So some students who also have been declassified, meaning they no longer have an IEP, may also receive accommodations. But in order to receive these accommodations, it has to be on a student's IEP or 504 plan. And it must include the type of accommodation. You'll also see that maybe in some cases, multilingual English language learners may also receive accommodations, and then other students in cases of emergencies, like they have a temporary impairment, they can receive accommodations. So let's take a look at students who receive accommodations and those who also receive modifications. So students who have an IEP are either alternately assessed or standardly assessed. And there's a very small number of students with IEPs that take alternate assessments. Students who are alternately assessed do not sit for Regents exams. They have significant cognitive disabilities, and they are not on a pathway to receive a high school diploma. So this designation is determined by a team and is specifically indicated on the IEP. The classroom teachers do not make that determination. And please remember that a very small number of students that are alternately assessed, so you may not have students who are alternately assessed in your classroom. The United States Department of Education, their Every Student Succeeds Act, ESSA, indicates that they make a cap on the number of students who are alternately assessed at 1% of all students who are tested. So again, remember, it's a very small group of students who will get modifications who are alternately assessed, right?
And Laurie, how would you tell? How would a teacher know?
So it's a good question. So this is on their IEP. Okay. So students who are alternately assessed or standardly assessed, you would find that on the IEP. Another way is that students, you would talk to the special education teacher, because that's whose responsibility it would be, and there's specific criteria. So again, it would be on their IEP if they are alternately assessed or standardly assessed. So the large majority of students with IEPs are standardly assessed. So these students are taking the Regents exams. They're on a pathway to receive a high school diploma. And these students may receive some accommodations. So again, this would be listed on their IEP. It is not up to the general education teacher to do alternately assessed modifications. You would be working with a special education teacher. But just to be aware that the students that we've been talking about the past 2 sessions, and we're talking about again today, we're really talking about our students, the majority of our students with IEPs who are standardly assessed, who are held to the same standards as their peers in general education. So that's the majority. It's a very small 1% of students who are significant cognitive disabilities who will have modifications. So we just want to be clear when we're talking about every student and all students, we are really talking about our students who are standardly assessed. And again, teachers do not make that determination. You do not have to, it's a team. Okay, so if you have any questions, you can reach out to the special education teachers or the special education department in your school, and they support your classroom teaching. Okay, so today we're going to read through some sample unit plans and see what kind of changes we can make to our instruction or the way the student expresses or demonstrates their knowledge and what accommodations would be appropriate. So we're going to have a note catcher to record this information, and you can put on any interesting or significant information and the appropriate accommodations. We will use the classroom and the student profiles from the last session, so you'll have access to those when we get in the group. So let's just review and look at the class profile on the next slide. So this class consists of general education students, students with disabilities, and multilingual learners. They vary from students who have difficulties earning their credits and passing exams to students who are on track to earning an advanced diploma. So there are a few students who have attendance issues. There are a variety of learning styles, with most students learning best from multiple modalities, which is an instructional practice used to improve student engagement by providing diverse presentations and experiences of the content so that the students use different senses and different skills during a single lesson. So we're going to be using this classroom profile for our fishbowl demonstration, and the same profile will be used when you do your own lessons later in this session. So if we go to the next slide, students have accommodations. So we've looked on the students' IEPs, and there are various accommodations based on students' individual needs. The class has several students who receive extended time. A few students receive focusing prompts due to being off task, and a small group of these students in our classroom need questions and directions read, with some requiring them to be read more than once. So as we look through our units, we're going to be thinking of these student profiles in our classroom and what kind of accommodations are we making? How are we changing the way our instruction is? And is it for very specific students need some accommodations, or maybe some of our teaching is changed to accommodate everybody? So let's take a look at that. We'll go to the next slide, please. So we had a few very gracious teachers, right, to share our share their lesson unit plans. And so Jaimie is going to tell us a little about this
Yes.
unit plan we're going to use.
I'll give you a little context. So this is from oh my goodness, the high school, Robin Bryant and Sanch Lawrence at, oh my gosh, the name of the school just jumped out of my head. I'm thrown off this morning. It's the medical high school. Clara Barton, thank you. My sister-in-law went there. Clara Barton High School. Robin and Sanch. Robin teaches health, and Sanch is the math teacher. And they got together because they were very interested in teaching about maternal mortality, especially among Black women. And they built an absolutely gorgeous unit of study that is actually taught in the health class and supported by the math. And Sanch then pushes in every once in a while to support the math component, but it's baked into the actual unit of study. And so the big ideas, we pulled just an excerpt from the unit plan. The big ideas and enduring understandings are that maternal mortality among Black women is too high, and it doesn't have to be that way. That educating ourselves and others about the resources available in our community is one important way to improve the health of Black mothers and their babies. And we can educate ourselves and our community and decrease the mortality rate among Black women, and it's our responsibility. to ensure that all women have access to adequate medical care. So those are the big juicy takeaways from this unit of study. The essential question is, why is maternal mortality increasing in America? Is there a racial care gap in medical treatment, and what can be done? You can change it, Rebecca, thank you. So on the left, if you're familiar with understanding by design templates or backwards design templates, you'll often have then a content section that's driven by guiding questions, but this is the content you want kids to know and understand. So I won't go into all of that. You guys will have a chance to take a look at it more deeply. Um, there's two little pieces of content on the left, and then we're going to focus mostly on the skills on the right, because that's what we're asking kids to do. This is what they need to know, and we're asking kids to do these things to show us that they know the content. So you're going to have a chance to take a look at that. We are actually going to unpack that together, Laurie and I. She's going to mostly do it. So what we're asking kids to do is come to the discussions prepared, having read and researched the material under study, draw on that preparation, provide evidence from the texts. So it's a big task, and you can see the standard that we're addressing there. The diagnostic is to write their answer to the essential question, which they will then do at the very end of the unit again and compare their pre and post responses. And then you're going to see how the lesson goes, but the performance indicators are: look at the picture of the women in faux bloody outfits, explain what this group is visually representing, share what they've learned about the historical moment that this picture represents, and then discuss the guiding questions. So now we can go to the next one, Rebecca.
Okay.
Go
All
ahead.
right. All right. So this is the note catcher that we're going to be using for this unit, and it's same note catcher that you'll be using when you go off in your groups. So if you notice on the left that we're focusing, like Jaimie said, on the skills. You will have a list of accommodations that modifications that are from Rubicon. That's why you'll see those little numbers there, 6954. So when you do it, you don't have to think these up. You can pull them off the list, or you might have some of your own. So let's get started at that. So when I looked at the skills section, the first section Jaimie spoke about, I noticed the student directions. So from that Rubicon list, I pulled off a few, thinking that the directions should be direct and uncomplicated. They should be repeated and clarified and reworded. And I also thought they should be verbal as well as written. And the reasoning behind that is because with like neuroscientists concluded that the better students are at combining visual and auditory information, the better the student can remember what they've learned. So studies have demonstrated the effectiveness of teaching methods which simultaneously make use of multiple senses. So each sense provides different information, which is combined and interpreted by our brain. And so when you learn something using one of your senses, whether it's sight, hearing, smell, touch, or taste, those areas, those neural pathways in the brain relate to those senses, are created and activated and strengthened. So then when you go to recall this information later, your brain reactivates those connections and pull it back to your conscious awareness. So when you activate those multiple sensory channels while learning, your brain not only builds new pathways, but also makes those connections and making the memory retrieval easier and more efficient, which is what we want for our students. So those kind of accommodations support our students. Remember from our profiles, we had students who had difficulty following or remembering directions, difficulty concentrating, those who had difficulty decoding, so they want to hear it, and processes written information at a slower rate. So this is why we want to do our directions verbal as well as written, and kind of click to all those senses. Then when I looked a little further and I said, those student directions, I read what was on that unit plan: come prepared, having read and researched materials under study. So I thought, well, if we're sending them home with some reading to do ahead of time, I'm thinking we're going to want to pre-teach that new vocabulary. And we also want to have teach them some textbook reading strategies. So we know that research shows that pre-teaching vocabulary facilitates greater comprehension of the text. So if they have that vocabulary ahead of time, they're going to come to class with a greater comprehension of what they read. It also reduces the number of unfamiliar words encountered. And again, visual representation of vocabulary words, again, like we said, hitting more of those senses. So then we went to where it said, write your answer to the EQ, essential question. KWL, that's your graphic organizer. So we thought, I want to break this down into smaller segments. So instead of just writing the answer, I might want to start the students with using sentence starters to help those students understand what they should be analyzing within a text in order to complete a writing or discussion activity. So this, using smaller segments, can be used as a scaffold, with the goal being eventually that the students will have that ability to independently analyze and write about the content. So if we start them with a graphic organizer, eventually they might be creating their own. I've seen students on Regents exams all of a sudden on their scrap paper do a little bubble map or do something, and that gets them going and able to start writing. So let's look at the next slide. Continuing with the writing, they're using the graphic organizers. Why would we use graphic organizers? Because as in the name, it helps students organize, clarify, and simplify when we give them complex information. It also supports our students, who we saw some of our students in our profiles who had oral difficulty with oral and written expression. It helps those students with the writing process. Again, pictorial representations, visual learning tools enable students to have a deeper understanding of the content, and it breaks down bigger concepts into smaller segments. So our next section that we looked at, the description where we said, look at the picture of the woman in faux bloodied. So they were asking the student to look at this picture, but again, if we broke down what we wanted them to do in small segments and verbally guided the student through the task steps, for example, instead of telling them just to look at it, we could ask them, list 3 things you notice about this photo, or start them with a sentence starter. I noticed that. Or even ask them what's unusual or stands out about this photo, or even I noticed that it is unusual that. Just having those little bit of sentence starters gets the students, builds up their confidence a little bit and know exactly what the task is. And then when we're asking the student to explain what this group is visually representing. So we want to give the student multiple ways for the student to demonstrate their knowledge. So we can give them a choice of either writing it or oral expression. Another good thing I'm thinking for our students is using a discussion board. And that would allow students who need more time to start reflecting on the topic and to have the ability to participate. So if you had a discussion board, whether you're in person or remote, it could be on a chart paper in the classroom, or it could be on the computer. Students are putting down their ideas, so students who kind of have a little difficulty getting started can read and respond to what other students have written, and therefore they are learning also. So it's a great way for the teacher also to monitor the bigger discussion. So let's look at the next one, where we're saying, share what you have learned about the historical moment that this picture represents. So we want to allow wait time for processing before calling on a student for response, because we noticed in our student profile that some students, they process things a little slower and they have to formulate their answer. So we want to give them that time. We also want to frequently check for understanding, because we want to make sure that the students are understanding the task, and that when they're ready to share out, that they actually have the proper information, again, building confidence and allowing them to be a part of the discussion. And use of checklists. So allow students, our rationale is that we needed to allow students extra time, and you'll notice that many students with disabilities do have extra time as one of their accommodations written on the IEP. We also want to listen to the students' responses and give feedback prior to the student sharing, in order to make sure they understand the assignment and that they feel more comfortable sharing. So Again, if we're checking for understanding, it will allow us to know, do we have to reteach this or do they actually understand it? And if we have a checklist, the students can self-assess the completion of their responses through a checklist prior to sharing with the group. Again, building confidence and having more, they have, more input into the class. Then when we asked the last session was they need to discuss the guiding questions. So a good thing, maybe we might want to assign a peer buddy or allow students to practice the responses with the other students prior to sharing with the whole group. Allow some turn and talk so students can process and retain the information in addition to allowing assessments by the teacher. So these are just a few. If somebody else did the same lesson, I'm sure they'd come up with a lot of similar ones, but also additional. So this is what we're going to be, we're hoping that, when we break into groups, you will be looking through your student profiles, you'll look at the unit plan, and you'll look at these accommodations and which ones do you think would support your instruction, the students' expression, and also the assessment, the teacher assessing them. So let's go to the next slide. So that was a unit plan that we looked at. So now these teachers created their lesson specifically from that unit plan. So this is just a piece, one piece or one lesson from that plan. So how would we apply all those accommodations and things that we put on our note catcher? So you're not going to do the lesson part here when you get into your group. You're only going to do the first part, but we wanted to show you how we would apply these to this actual lesson. So I'm looking at this do now, and it's 3 minutes. And here's the picture of the woman with the faux bloodied shirt on them. And it says, what do you think this picture represents? So back to our list where I said, let's put it in small segments. We know it's only 3 minutes. And a lot of our students need some extra time for processing. They're going to be looking at it. They might not be quite sure what to do. So if we actually put this do now, same question, what do you think this picture represents? But then for some of our students say, list 3 things you notice about this photo. Or sentence starter, I noticed that. Or ask them what is unusual or stands out about this photo. Or I noticed that it is unusual that, and they could continue. So again, it's the same thing that we're asking them, what this picture represents. We're just approaching it from a different way, asking them so they can get a jump starter, they can get going on what 3 things. So the end product is the same, but it's just the way that we're asking to look at this, because it could take 3 minutes for them looking at it and not knowing where to begin. Also, again, as a do now, if I put this up, I would definitely want to say it out loud, and in addition to just having the do now written there. So on the aim of this particular lesson says, how can we analyze real world graphs and data and formulate practical solutions? So some of the things, again, from that drop down, use of visual aids. Consider showing a picture of the graph next to the aim so students know, oh, this is what we're talking about when we're talking about having graphs. Verbal, again, as well as written. Again, work in small segments. This aim, maybe consider breaking the aim into 2 questions. What do you notice about the graphs? And is there something that can be done to change the future data or direction of the graph? So that 1 sentence just broken down into 2 sentences, allow the student to focus on one small piece at a time. And also consider, if you do have a paraprofessional, if available, to just pre-teach the aim to the students. So, so the maternal, okay, I think click on again. So how can we analyze real world graphs and data and formulate the practice? So again, pre-teach the new vocabulary, or consider having a vocabulary sheet available for students to refer back to. Limit new concepts taught per instructional period. So when I look at this definition by WHO, which is World Health Organization, very important to have that definition. But I'm looking at some of the vocabulary words in that just in that sentence there, termination, irrespective, duration, aggravated, incidental. So the teacher should determine which words are necessary to review in order to actually understand that definition. So perhaps they might want to paraphrase the definition or have students paraphrase the definition of maternal mortality. So still having this definition up there, but paraphrasing it so that all students can understand it, and deciding which of those vocabulary words really kind of that they need to know in order to understand the definition of maternal mortality.
Laurie, so a lot of the teachers say that they're using word walls these days for new vocabulary, so that they're just building
Right.
these robust walls.
Right. And that's great. Those word walls are great. And for some of our students, you can even give like a sheet with just a vocabulary sheet for the student to keep in their notebook. If there's, you know, words that you think that are key towards that student, you know, because everybody has different levels of vocabulary. But yes, a word wall, but also maybe a little vocabulary sheet in addition to that wall for particular students so that they can easily find it, you know, or circle those ones prior and have them go to the word wall and say, before I read that, let me make sure I understand those definitions. So we are going to be doing, we're going to break into 3 different groups, and we're going to have career and financial management, electrical, and computer programming. And we're going to do the same thing with the with our note catcher, where you're just going to look at the student profiles, you're going to look at the different kind of accommodations, modifications, and you're going to read through the sections of it and use that note catcher.
So is Rebecca going to replace Sharon? Because Sharon was going to do the career.
Sharon isn't here.
Sharon is
Oh,
here.
you are
Sharon is here.
good. Okay,
I left the main room after making sure everyone else was in their workshops.
Okay,
I didn't want
super.
I didn't want to interrupt Laurie when I arrived.
Okay, perfect. Excellent.
So yeah, so we're going to be doing those. You're not going to be looking at the lesson plan, that section part, just the unit. And again, just thinking of our students in the classroom, what kind of accommodations can be made to help the student? What kind of changes can we make to our instruction? And are there different ways that the students can express themselves?
Right. Actually, Laurie, we have the unit plan excerpt, but we do have some of the working lessons to take a look at for both computer programming and for electrical. We do have some protocols we can look at.
Perfect. And ladies, I thank you for getting the session started. Virtual is convenient, but also I have to make sure that everyone else is okay. So yeah. I apologize for getting here late. Thank you.
No worries. And so now the logistics of choosing your the content area that you want to do, that you want to work on.
So in the I'm thinking in the chat, can we put the note catcher, and then when you link on the note catcher, you will have the different unit lessons, but now we have to get everybody into breakout rooms.
Which, Laurie, you're putting us into breakout rooms.
No, I'm not putting
people were going to choose. So Dantel had a system for people to be able
choosing.
To choose.
Right, but then the facilitators have to know where they're going.
Yes. Right, we know where we're going, but we want to make sure people can choose the, breakout room that they need to go in, and the logistics of that.
So, I mean, there's a thing that says create 3 breakout rooms, let participants choose room.
Yeah,
but
go for it. Thanks,
okay,
everybody.
room 1 is going to be, I'm not sure if he set this up already, so I'm just going to set it up right now.
Yeah,
career and financial.
And Rebecca, I see Rebecca just put something in the chat. Rebecca, you can feel free to unmute yourself if you need to and speak.
Yeah, absolutely. I just put the link to the fishbowl.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, but okay, I'm going to rename. Okay, so as we're doing this, start thinking about which one that you want to go to. So we have career and financial management.
And then electrical.
will
And then
be
computer programming.
electrical will be room 2, and room 3 is going to be computer programming. And so before you go into your rooms, or facilitators can do that also when they get into the rooms, please make sure that you copy that link to get the note catcher. And when you get on the note catcher, on the top, you will see you click on which lesson you chose, and you will also be able to click on the link for the student profiles and the accommodations list.
And we'll be
So-
there with you. So we'll all figure all that out together once you're there. So Laurie, I'm going to go to 2. Is that correct?
Okay.
I'm doing electrical.
Yes, I've never done breakout rooms in Zoom, so I'm sorry. I am,
No
it's in
worries.
progress here. So,
Rebecca, maybe if
it
if
said
you
broadcast message to all. I'm sorry, does
Yeah.
everybody
Yep.
getting that message? Are you
it's
getting a
starting to
message?
come through. Yeah.
Okay, so
So everybody pick your discipline.
again, room 1 was, okay.
Yeah, career and financial management's got a bunch of folks.
You're seeing it, Laura? I guess
Jaimie,
I'm
you're
not a
seeing it?
co-host. I don't see Jaimie.
I think you need to be maybe Rebecca, can you make Sharon a co-host too?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
please. Thank you.
So yes, so I'm looking at the screen, and some of the people who haven't joined yet, so please just join one of them, and then it's placing you in that breakout room.
And there's a lot in career and financial management.
Okay, so I
So-
need to be able to go there.
Sorry,
Is it
Sharon,
free?
I'm not able to make you a co-host, but that could be.
So
since
can
I'm
you
not
just
in-
send her to breakout room number 1?
Wait, I'm going to turn you into a co-host.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think.
Thank
I think
you.
I don't have the admin privileges for that.
Okay.
All right. Yes.
Good. And
Just-
then
just
Laurie,
let me
you're going to
know.
do computer programming, right? And I'll do electrical. Is that what we said, or the opposite?
You're building the brick.
I'm building the brick. Okay, I'm doing computer programming. All right, here I go.
Okay. Where
I
do
am-
I can't see where to go.
It should say, you
It's
should
not
get an
popping up.
invite.
So on the bottom where it says, do you have something that says breakout rooms? If you click on that, then I'm
No.
seeing a list on the bottom of your screen. Everybody
Um,
has like security, participants, chat, share screen. Like,
Yeah.
do you see breakout rooms down there?
No, I don't have it unless you make me a co-host.
You are a co-host, so I just made you one. Yes, so
Otherwise, I have to just go into the room as all the
yeah,
other
do you see
participants.
where it says join?
Nope.
Someone's asking to repeat the rooms. So we have room 1 is career and financial management. Room 2 is electrical, and room 3 is computer programming. So a lot of
have it.
Excuse me, I see restriction at the bottom of my screen. I don't see breakout. I see participant chat, share screen, and restriction. Or reactions. Action, yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm seeing.
Yeah, what you'll see is not what we will see. I'm still not. Usually the breakout will pop up at
Right.
the middle of the screen and you just click on it. It hasn't popped up for me.
It hasn't for me either.
Laurie, are you able to click on those 3 dots next to the individual people? And sometimes it says like invite to breakout.
Yeah, I put broadcast message to all. So let me see. I only have 13 people left in this room. Everybody else has gone to other rooms.
Okay.
So only 13
So
people.
can-
I have, yeah.
Maybe just manually now you have to send us.
All right. So I am going to.
If you can send me to one.
Okay. I am going to assign you to career financial. So.
Brilliant. I'm joining. Thank you.
Electrical. Dawn Watson, Career and Financial Management.
Okay, so is just trying to, is Scarlett Garzon have any? I'm gonna get to my breakout room. So, but in the people who are left, if you have Anissa Crosby, Scarlett Garzon, Jillian Beckford, John McLaughlin, Julia Rodriguez, and Sotera Laturkis, if you have any preference.
I'd like career and financial, please.
I think it
And
looks
who is that? I'm
Julia
sorry.
Rodriguez.
Okay, so career
as well.
And
career
it's Scarlett
financial
Garzon.
to career. Okay, because
Thank you.
okay,
And for Anissa Crosby, can I do career and financial
okay,
management, please?
sure.
Oh, I got it.
Jillian.
Now I see the link. Yes.
Okay, Jillian Beckford.
Career and financial.
Okay, nobody's coming with me. John McLaughlin.
What room are you in? I'll go to
I
your
am
room.
electric. Thank you so much. Electrical.
Dawn Watson.
I like
Dawn
electric.
Watson, Career and Financial Management.
I don't see. Are you on a phone number?
Dawn Watson.
Right. I don't see the name. Dawn what? Oh, I saw you're in electrical, but I'm going to move you to career and financial.
Thank you.
Okay. And I have two other people, and I'm just Soteria and a phone number preference, or can I just move you?
Soteria, room 1 as well, career and financial.
Okay, and the phone number one, I'm just going to move to.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
I'll just put to electrical because I actually have to go to my room now.
Yes.
So. Okay, they all got 60 seconds to come.
Yes.
60-second warning, so they should all be popping in here.
Perfect.
Right now, it's just the four of us again. So, but I'm sure you saw something that popped up. Did you have to click it to come back?
I did click it, but it said if I don't click it, it's automatically sent to
Okay.
me.
So let me put a countdown. Here they come.
So it should be, and I will go ahead and share.
Yes, if you could, you're going to share back the screen again. I stopped sharing, I think, right? Okay, everybody's coming back. Welcome back, everybody. We'll give a couple. Good, everybody. I think everybody's just about back. Rebecca's going to share a screen again, and we only have about 8 minutes. So what we'd like to do is each group just to give us a little bit of their insight of, what your discussion was like. You don't have to read your checklist or your note catcher, but just give us just your insight to this activity and what you think of that accommodations and modifications. And, what was challenging or how did you solve for this challenge? And specifically, what can you implement in future lessons and instruction? Okay, so we have our 3 rooms. Do we want to start? Let's go. Room number 1 was that our
Career.
career, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Danielle,
Sharon?
do you mind? Daniel was our gracious note taker.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah, but do you want me to share the screen?
Yeah,
Just-
sure.
just-
sure.
oh.
If you want.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can.
How would you like me to do this?
I mean, it's fine. It's easy. I think it's fine.
Yeah.
And people can see if you don't touch upon everything.
Cool. Well, I touched upon most of it. So what we came up with for accommodations and modifications, we have word walls like you guys suggested, which I thought was great, and I'm kind of excited to use that in my classroom. We also have like a Google form for students, like organizing all their ideas if they need to, and it's something that's personal and it's also technically, I guess, hands-on as well, which would be great for those kids. And you were talking about the multi-sensory learning objectives or tasks right before. So having students be able to write down, I guess something like that would help do that. We also, some other accommodations we put in were students rate themselves, like a 1, 2, 3 system. So before a task, you ask them, what's your level of understanding, and each level kind of has like its own meaning. Like 1 means they need help, 2 means they think they understand, but they want to try it, and 3 is like, they totally have it. And then based on that, you can kind of have your class move at different paces without slowing it down. And then based on, and if the students rate their understanding as a 1, then you can do one-on-one time, or you can do like grouping with them, with those higher level students. And then we also talked about like modifying the pace of instruction, allowing more time for students to kind of absorb material. And unfortunately, I did not get to the last one.
That's okay. Yeah, just overview. We're asking, did your group come up with some things that they would be able to like, implement right away, and or did they find this list helpful?
We didn't. It was only 3 people talking, so I think I definitely
More than my group.
yeah. Well, I'm definitely gonna use the word wall, because
Excellent.
to be perfectly honest, I am not a CTE teacher. I'm a music teacher, but I want to get more involved in CTE.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of
Word wall's great. And the
Yeah.
discussion board is also a good thing to, along with the word wall. Excellent. Thank you
And
very
by the
much
way,
for
I
sharing.
have a word wall. Every time I work in a new CTE discipline, they have acronyms and they have so many different language groups.
Right.
So
And
I
in,
have one. It works
right.
great.
And in addition to build off of that word wall, you might also be able to put a vocabulary sheet individually for students to, and maybe highlight the ones that you'll be using in that lesson today. So that not every student, some students can pull it right off the word wall, but other ones might say, what's on the word wall. So you're just going to kind of give them a little sheet ahead of time, knowing what to look for on the word wall. So perfect. Love
just
that.
To add to that, the group also made a connection to one of our prior sessions and reference digitizing the word wall, using
Nice.
Padlet
Yes.
or near
Yes.
Nearpod.
Yep.
Yes. So
Absolutely.
I thought that was very useful.
Yes, thank you. So then how about John, do you want to share what we did in the
Thanks for sharing,
electric?
Daniel.
Yes, thank you so much, Daniel. John, do you want to
Sure.
share what we did in the electric unit plan?
Surely.
You don't
So
have to share screen, you can just talk or
yeah,
either.
yeah. So we talked about a couple of accommodations that might be very helpful. Since electrical work, there's a lot of math involved, so there would be several steps that a student would have to go through to accomplish the task. And we thought that a checklist of the steps, step 1, step 2, step 3, would be very helpful, especially if a student had missed a step. And rather than just struggle at the step that was missed, or something went wrong, they could go back to the checklist and see if they did things in the correct order. We also thought that modeling by the teacher was super important, because if an IEP student or an ENL student hadn't seen the work done before, I mean, how would they know how to progress forward through it? And we also mentioned it was number 68, and it was having completed examples for the students to look at. So if they had a completed example, they could work with that in the checklist, and it would probably be easier for them to duplicate the same thing that they were trying to do for themselves.
Perfect. Thank you so much, John. Yes, some great suggestions, especially that modeling this group talked about how it would change the instruction, how it would change, maybe some things of the content, picking out, how we're showing the content, in addition to the assessments. How are we assessing the students? How are we allowing them to demonstrate to us what they have learned? So thank you very much for that, John. And then we have the next group, which is the computer group with Jaimie's group.
Yep. Tanya, take it away.
We shared the lesson And the task that I was giving in terms of my students are to create a brick and then eventually create an entire brick wall. But first create one using some geometry and some algebra equations that they had to figure out. I received some suggestions. We talked about adding a similar to electrical, a checklist, or to ask a few recall questions as they're going through, reviewing what the task is, get them to do it on paper first before going straight to the computer to create the program. That was also a suggestion of pseudocode. And pseudocode is similar to writing the whole entire program in code. However, it's breaking it down into more English-like language and short snippet of commands. So that's really good for students that I didn't think about. And there was a suggestion of follow along videos. Perhaps if I created some videos myself and then kids could watch, pause at their own time, you know, outside of class.
Yeah, love
And
that.
that could be something that students could do for each other too. The AP students who have learned how to do that, they could make them. I think
That's
that would
true.
be fun.
Yes.
Yeah, so I love those suggestions. Yes. With somebody's, oh, so,
Yeah, actually, oh, sorry.
Go ahead,
oh, go
Dan.
ahead, Daniel.
Yeah. So going back to Tanya's thing, what I do commonly in my classes, because I know everybody's internet access is not equitable. So I make screencasts of everything that I'm doing, so students can actually like go along and like I can model exactly what I'm doing on a platform, so they can kind of see it. Then they can stop, and also that helps differentiate for the way people learn. If students need, we talked about slowing the pace down. Students are able to pace the lesson for themselves. Then
Excellent.
That to be very, very helpful.
Love that. Very nice.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I think it is 10:46. Are there any questions that haven't been addressed? If you want to reach out to us you can talk now or reach out to us at a different time, and we're always available to answer, help, support. Sharon, did you want to give the some closing? And I just want to say thank you very much for coming today, and your participation was just great. It was just a wonderful experience for us, so I hope it was just as good for you.
Yes, am I on mute? No, I'm not on mute. Laurie, I thank everyone, all the participants. I thank you all for your patience as we navigate through the session, just having to be agile because my staff is hospitalized and who was supposed to do all of our technical backup pieces. But I think we did a great job. Kudos to all of us. We managed through. Thank you, Jaimie. Thank you, Laurie. Thank you, all of the participants. Thank you, Rebecca, for talking with me yesterday on a Sunday and for pitching in. I appreciate you. And so, I am so proud to be part of such innovative and intelligent DOE educators. So at the end of the day, we ask that you complete the evaluation. If for some reason you're leaving, as long as you have registered and we have your email, we will send you the evaluation survey. So I thank you, and let's transition to session 2.
Sure. Yes, thank you. And I see a lot of great thank yous in the comments.
I see Daniel. Oh yes.